Ilonka Deaton was a child sex slave for 5 years. She kept the abuse a secret out of fear for her family's safety. But today the author crisscrosses the country sharing her secret in hopes of helping others break free from the pain and the trauma of human trafficking. Good to have you back with us today, Ilonka. And for folks that maybe missed you the first time around, just a quick synopsis of your story. How did this happen? When did this happen?
Sure.
And how long did it happen?
I grew up in a single-parent family home in Johannesburg, and I won a national singing competition at age 12 that kind of propelled me into the pop culture of music. And
So
I thought,
bright lights and
all the
accolades,
glitz and the glamour.
yeah.
I thought all my dreams had come true. Because I didn't have a dad at home, my music manager kind of stepped into that father role for me. And you know, what child does not want to have a dad and a mom around? And I really thought that I was getting a glimpse of what it's like to have a dad in my life, but little did I know that he had different plans for me. About a year into my first contract, he sexually violated me, unfortunately, and then kept me in that slavery for 5 years, trading me to CEOs for money exchanges and continuing the abuse of my family. But the reason I couldn't speak up about it was because he threatened to kill my mother, to kill my family, and then to kill me if I would utter a word, and I honestly believed him.
Wow, wow. Yeah, I was going to say, well, why didn't you say something? But the threat was
right.
You felt was very real.
Very, very real, and my mother is someone that I looked up to, that I loved, and I didn't want to be taken away from her. I didn't want my family to get hurt. And as a child, I thought it was my duty to protect them. But it was not.
But you say you later blamed your mother.
I did, yes. As the abuse kept going, continuing, and emotionally, I became more and more distant from my family, because when you live in a dark secret, you can't be who you really are in family settings. You have to hide and pretend to be someone else. And the longer that continued, the walls kept getting higher and higher between me and my mom. And then eventually I started blaming her, because I thought, why isn't she noticing this? Do I have to say something for her to notice this? But in reality, she did take me from pastors to psychiatrists, and I was even hospitalized at 16 years old for them to find out what was going on with me, because I became a very rebellious child that drank and did drugs and that smoked. So she knew something was wrong, but I just did not have the courage.
Well, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of other pop stars that we've kind of seen over the last 5 or 10 years that were maybe, all right, I might be giving away some identities here, but they're on the Disney Channel or they're this and they seem like such sweet, young children, but then all of a sudden they go through this crazy phase. There might be some things that are happening too. What was it that was maybe the trigger that, or the key that unlocked the door to allow you to begin to talk about this, or at least, get it out in the open and out of the darkness?
That didn't happen till almost 13 years after the abuse first happened to me. I was invited to a church, and I heard a pastor in Franklin, Tennessee, talk about a man named Jesus who loves broken, messy people with stories that you would think you just cannot tell. And it was me. And that pastor spoke about a Jesus that I'd never met in my life, but I wanted to know him. My husband prayed for me after the church service, and something miraculous happened to me. I heard God's voice, and he spoke to me and called me by my name and said, "Ilonka, cry out to me." And for the first time in my life, with absolute desperation in my heart, I just laid it all down and surrendered all of that and said, "Jesus, well, if you are who I was taught in catechism in the Dutch Reformed Church, who they said you are and who Bill says, my husband says you are, then please come and help me, because I just want to die. I don't want to live." And the Lord put a blanket of peace over me. He took my depression away, and he gave me a new life. And although I couldn't really tell you then what happened to me, it took me some months to understand that is the point that I really surrendered my life to Christ.
Ilonka, in your new project, Keeping Secrets, you divulged this secret. You walk victims through this journey and help them find freedom. But what do you say to abusers? People, someone may be watching who has abused someone sexually, a man or a woman. What do you say to them? Because I'm sitting here, I have to tell you, I'm just like fighting mad that this happened to you.
Oh, thank you, Valerie. And like I said before, my story is not unique, and that's why, it's so important to speak up. But let me talk to the abusers and the pimps and the people who are victimizing children and adults still today. I want you to know that Jesus adores you. He loves you, and he has forgiveness for you. The reason that you are hurting other people is because you've been hurt somewhere in your life. This is a cyclical cycle that you are continuing, but it's not the answer. The pain that you're creating in others' lives is not going to give you the freedom or the status or celebrity or the success that you really want in your life. You will need to turn to Jesus for Him to fill that part of your heart. And you too can walk away from doing wrong things to other people with a story to tell. And the Lord has forgiveness for you, and you can have freedom as well.
Wow. Ilonka, you also say that counseling is the key when it comes to getting to a place of healing and recovery. How does that begin, and how can someone find an appropriate counselor?
Sure. Counseling is very important. It's Christian counseling is the key to understanding and walking through abuse. And the reason I say that is because you cannot heal from trauma without Jesus. It just doesn't work. If you don't have that spiritual peace, yes, you're just going to try to think positive all your life, and you're still going to feel yucky every morning, and you're still going to have depression and anxiety. You really need Jesus, because the healing that He needs to do in your heart, what He has to undo in your heart to heal you, only Jesus can do through the Holy Spirit. So it's very important that you seek out a trauma Christian counselor that understands the patterns of abuse. If you look at a young girl of 15 years old, and you look at a woman that's 45 years old, although the 45-year-old woman has lived a longer life, their patterns of behavior is exactly the same. You see, the enemy he's not very creative. God's the creative one. The enemy has a cookie-cutter method of what happens to women and men who have been abused in their life, and we all have the same patterns. So you need to really sit down with a counselor that understands that can tell you why you think the way you do, that you are not crazy for behaving the way that you do, and then teach you new tools to start coping with the thoughts and the suicidal thoughts and the depression and anxiety that you live with and the tormenting that happens in your heart. As you start walking that out, it takes time to do it, but as you start walking it out, that counselor will give you a safe space to where you can now start sharing what happened to you, sharing your story.
And if you can just, we've got about a minute left, where can folks find that kind of information? And I think your website has some resources to point people in the right direction.
We have a 24/7 chat line for anybody that needs help. We have over 400 resources for you. If you go to our website, you can chat live immediately with one of our counselors. And of course, if you're in Franklin, Tennessee, we offer free counseling for any woman.
I know, Ilonka, I know viewers are watching wondering what happened to the perpetrator who molested you. And when do you start to call the police in all of this? And is it, can you address that?
Yes, if it's a child under 18, we have to report it by state law to protect the child, but we want to make sure we get the whole story so that the right person gets in trouble for what's going on. If it is an adult, of course, you do not have to call, the police about that. It's their choice to report. However, I do encourage people to do it because it gives you another step of freedom. I went back in 2012 to South Africa with my husband, filed charges against the man that did this to me. He was arrested, and we are still in the court proceedings of that case.
Wow. Well, it's been so wonderful having you back, Ilonka. Our guest today, Ilonka Deaton, the book, Keeping Secrets. And to connect with Ilonka, you can go to ilonkaministries.com, or as always, go to our website, harvest-tv.com. You'll find an easy way to link back to her site with all of those resources and the opportunity to pick up a copy of Keeping Secrets as well. We'll be back in just a moment.